You mentioned in another podcast being excited about large language models like ChatGPT and how they represent a category changer and huge business transformation. Obviously, you are now very much in the thick of it with Gemini. In what ways do you think these models, like the GPT series models, the Gemini models, will specifically transform the practice of data science and the role of data scientists on product teams?
I think about a couple directions. One, I think that it's really going to help democratize data further. I think with these large language models, the new programming language is English, so it's very accessible. And I think broadens data access to more people to be able to reason over data for things like business intelligence, insights. You can upload a table, CSV, and ask for trends or insights on that data. And so I think that it really democratizes data further. And then I think for a data scientist, I think just kind of like we were discussing in the developer context, like we're constantly looking to increase the level of abstraction, make some of the more routine tasks more efficient. I think there's been a trend on this in general as we have more kind of BI tools available, things like AutoML available, where a lot of those implementation tasks are just further automated for you, and you can kind of focus more on the more sophisticated tasks, on the creative logic kind of behind the solutions that you're working on.
Very cool. Yeah, it's been a game changer for me. And I've even done hour-long keynotes on this idea of how when you have when you no longer are responsible for writing every line of code, it allows you as a data scientist or as a software developer to be able to think kind of one level up. And you still need to understand code. You still need to be able to write code and be able to edit code, but you don't need to be typing every character anymore. You don't need to be typing every line or every function anymore. And that's just going over the coming years, that's going to get easier and easier and easier and more accurate, such that whole functions, you can rely on them being written accurately first time by a generative AI tool. And so this frees you up as the data scientist or as the software developer to be thinking about the user experience and how now all of this code that you can quickly generate or you and your colleagues can quickly generate can be integrated together to create a powerful user experience. And so that's exactly the argument that I've been making in keynotes, is that you are now armed with these powerful large language models. You as a data scientist or a software developer are now more of a product person than ever before, or you should be thinking that way, I think.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think kind of to your earlier point on, staying in the flow, I think it allows you to just kind of stay at that creative level as well. And whether you're, typing out your ideas in bullet points or in pseudocode and then having the LLM complete and implement it rather than having to kind of keep context shifting from that high level design to the implementation, lets you stay more at that level. And I think, as you mentioned as well, you're still accountable for the code that's being written, but there's also ways that you can kind of leverage the LLMs too to kind of reason over the code that you're writing. I think we've just been tasking ourselves to, like, any task that you would do yourself, like, keep asking yourself first, is this something that I could leverage an LLM for? And it's pretty amazing kind of the number of times that the answer is yes.
It's unreal. I recently had a colleague say to me that they are using uh, ChatGPT in their case less than they were when it first came out. And we do see that with there's public data on the OpenAI website being used somewhat less. But it's interesting for me to see those stats or hear a colleague say that, because I'm using it more and more and more. Because the more that I use it, the more that I see it's so incredibly useful. In I'm I'm constantly thinking of situations like, there's surely no way that something this complex, this nuanced, could possibly be nailed by an LLM, but let's try it. And then, despite me seemingly not even giving enough of the context that I would have thought, if I had to explain this to a person, I would have thought that I'd need to give more context, but I've gotten used to this fact that I can even seemingly, due to the magic, I guess, of reinforcement learning from human feedback, even just my vague context ends up pointing the LLM in the right direction of the answer that I was looking for, the output that I was looking for. And I am on a daily basis still, nearly a year after the release of GPT-4, I'm still stunned on a daily basis by the brilliant things that LLMs are turning out.
Yes, it is a pretty amazing and delightful experience. Just to see the fun surprises of what you can make up.